Okay, we're back. Sorry about the interruption. We were really trying to figure out what was going on, and we had to reboot the computer and a whole bunch of things, but we are back. And I apologize for the interruption. If you're still out there, but whenever you're catching this, you know, I guess we just have to, part of our practice is to allow all things and be and be okay with all things. So we're just going to kind of start again, but where we were was we were asking what were the most relevant things that you experienced this year in the last now 17 episodes of A Course in Miracles here with us on our study group.
Everything. I mean, the principles of everything. I think we're constantly going over how this is a dream of, you know, we're living a separation, living in duality, and so that's the biggest thing. Which, and knowing too that we're all going to be saved. We might have to come back and do it again, but you know, we're all destined for oneness eventually. We can work at it this lifetime. So yeah, just that's an overwhelming feeling of peace. We talked about thoughts are things and dreams have no effect, and so it's just all the principles that we're constantly going over.
Okay.
And they resonate with me. I believe them all to be true, and I really feel that the more I keep following through with this, and then especially doing the lessons, which I haven't been on a regular basis, but I can see how every day putting this into practice could make a huge difference in the mindset and following through with Jesus' teachings here to reach the Christ consciousness.
Okay.
Something I guess we're all really, that's why we're here. That's what we're here to achieve.
It is, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, for me, my biggest takeaway was thoughts are things.
Thoughts are things.
Thoughts are things. That God didn't create the world we live in. We created this mess. We, as a collective consciousness, created this.
Okay.
And every thought that I have, every word that I say, every action I do is either for the creation or against the creation. So it's really, you're constantly having to think about how you want to respond to a situation, how to respond to a person of anything, because do I want to add to it or not?
Okay.
That is one of the biggest ones. I love knowing that we're all children of God, and that the only difference between God and us is that we didn't create ourselves. That we are that we are destined to be in right mind, in right action, capital M. When I do my prayers, I do my meditation, and I feel that connection, when I do the holy instant, I could see where the ego comes in and takes over more, but I have those moments of what slight connection, which is beautiful. For me, knowing, because of my teaching in Science of Mind, knowing that God is all there is, really keeps me at peace. It really, because there is no difference between that. Yeah.
Okay. So how do we come away with this idea of God? What is God? What is God to you?
God is love.
Love.
Consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yeah, pure consciousness. Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Is there any forgiveness in God?
Oh yeah, there's not. No, there wouldn't be. But God is forgiving.
God is really everything. God is all that is. So each one of us is a part of God. We are God in a sense.
Each one of us is a part of God. Hmm. So what if consciousness was a construct? What if we said that God is creation, and creation, as best as we can grasp it, would be an extension of love, because God is love, or God is the vibration or energy of love. Love is the creative force. And we are the energy of the Creator in action. We could almost say that's really would be more, in my thinking, thinking is the problem. In my awareness, it's more like consciousness. We could say consciousness, or we could say awareness.
Okay.
You know, and the best we can do to get our head around it, because these are quantum physics, dynamics, concepts, and constructs that are really difficult for us to get our head around. You know, and sometimes the more we study or try to get into it, the more distracted we become, because what's really happening is the sleeping mind at night, as an example. What can we do to it to make it equal to the awakened self? When we wake up in the morning, if we go back to sleep tonight, what can we do to that mind, that state of consciousness, that level of awareness, to make it identical to the awareness that we have right now?
So the lucid dream, basically.
But a lucid dream is where this self becomes conscious or awake of itself as a dreamer, but it doesn't accept the world. It sees the world as illusion. It knows the dream is a dream. When you become lucid in a state of dreaming, you're conscious. You now have awareness of the dream itself being an illusory construct.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any desire to fix the dream?
No.
No.
None. So what can we do to fix that dreaming mind? Is there anything we can do to fix that dreaming mind, to make it, in other words, so that we never go back into that state of consciousness, because we're always awake, if you will, in our dreams. We're always lucid in our dreams.
Can we connect to the Holy Spirit at that moment?
Well, we could, but let's go the other direction.
We could
What can we
apply it.
do to that little sliver of our intelligence that believes itself to be separate, believes itself to be itself, it doesn't even know we exist, it doesn't know we're safe at home in bed, it has no concepts, it has no construct of this awakened self and the life we're living? What can we do? Is there any doing needed to do something to that mind, that little sliver of intelligence that believes itself to be a separate entity? Is there anything we need to do to fix it?
Just to be aware of it and to apply it to our dreaming self, our awakened dreaming self.
So let's go in this direction. What if we were to admit to ourselves that there's nothing to fix because it's not really who we are?
Is that a trick question?
It is kind of, because what would happen to it if we quit giving it our awareness?
Glasses.
It just doesn't exist. As soon as you wake up, where is it? Where is it now? Waiting for you to recognize it again?
Mm-mm.
It doesn't really exist. It's an illusory construct, right? So let's say that that's the sleeping self, right? Snoring, right?
Okay.
What does this self, the awakened self, does it have any priority at all to spend any time focused on what can I do tonight when I go to sleep to make that self better?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing at all, because you really don't give a shit about it. You don't care about it.
True.
In fact, this self kind of drifts off into, it has an awareness of the sleeping self, like it's peering in, but it doesn't, as soon as you wake up, you don't care about that self, because you saw that that whole thing was a dream. So there's nothing to fix. But in almost all of our conversations, when we talk about the I self, right? This I self, this human self, we're always focused on fixing it. But you see, it's just like that self. It's a construct of intelligence. It's a construct of imagination. And as soon as the higher self, if we had the higher self up here, and you mentioned the Holy Spirit, how do you think it looks at this self? Exactly the way you look at your sleeping self. And it's going, oh, silly sleeping self. You look at your sleeping self and go, oh, that nightmare last night was nothing. Why would I have been so afraid? There, I have found myself going to this intersection and pulling out, because it's like a T street, right? And it's up on a hill, and the light takes like 2 or 3 minutes to change. And so I'm just sitting there tapping my foot. There's no cars, there's nothing, and I'm pulling out, right? So you could say, don't tell anybody. I'm running a red light, right? Is there a statute of limitations on running a red light? Okay, so last night I have a dream, and I'm pulling out, and I come out, and suddenly there's a barrier right there, there's a sign, and there's a policeman right there. And I go, whoa, no, and he's been watching me. I couldn't see him, but suddenly, guess what? I'm guilty. I have created a construct where I'm guilty, right, of breaking a law, doing something that you're not supposed to do. Guilt, guilt, guilt. And so I backed my car up thinking, well, I don't see, I just saw the barrier. I don't see. So I back the car and I turn around and I go, and they're over here on this side too. I'm trapped. There's no escape. Except I woke up. And where was the cop? Where was the red light? Where was the car? Where the hell was I at? Safe at home in bed, snoring, most likely. What is there to fix?
Nothing.
But this self believes itself to be all that is. This is me. This is who I am. So we're spending our time focusing on the thoughts of this self, and we could spend just as much time on the thoughts of the sleeping self. All right, so all events are neutral. If I really didn't run the red light in that dream, if there really was no cop, no barrier, no red light, no me. It was just all a construct, imagination, right? If all of that was just imagination, can I really say, because it was just a construct of thoughts, can I really say, right, that all of those events don't have any meaning?
Yes.
We can agree,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when we read the newspaper, when we look at the news, when we go shopping at Christmas, whatever, we give meaning to everything because it's serious as hell. And when I was pulling up to that barrier and I found myself to be guilty, and oh my God, I've been, what would we call that? I've been found out, that I'm breaking the law. I'm suddenly filled with fear and guilt and all of those emotions. I'm creating a construct of something that has no meaning whatsoever, right? Now we can see that when we're talking about Mr. Snore over here, right? But when we drive down the street and we get that pulled over by the cop, right? Or there's an accident or whatever's going on, we're like, oh, this is really important. We're giving but we have to be willing to move ourselves out of the idea that this self is any more real in its constructs of our reality than the sleeping self. And that's really hard to do. really, because we feel the pain. I was feeling the pain when I got found out to be a criminal, right? Running that red light. But we do experience pain. The sleeping self can experience pain, physical pain. And we'll turn anything that's going on in the body, we'll create some drama around that, and the sleeping self will. If there is some pain in the physical body, right? Yeah, we create all kinds of constructs, and they all seem real right up until the moment that we let go of our commitment that it is real. And then we begin to become self-aware. That's not all I am. There's something else to me. But wait a minute, I was just dreaming. Here I am safe at home in bed, and I got to go to work now, or I got to go make breakfast, or I got to do whatever, right? And all this is really trying to help us to see is if we take it one step further, the higher self, the Holy Spirit, which is nothing more than your right mind, is looking at this self and sees it in the same light that you see the snoring self. And so is the higher self, now think about this, you're always there watching the drama that's going on, so could the sleeping self ever do anything that you're not aware of? No. So when people pray to God and they say, well, look, I've got this problem, but the higher self knows all about it. There's nothing to tell it. There's nothing to pray for, because your higher self, there is no such thing as private thoughts. And we haven't spent a lot of time on that this year. We will next year, but not to be blasphemous, but there's no such thing as private thoughts. You cannot be separate. And so none of your thoughts are hidden, whether they're good or bad or in between. It doesn't matter. They're just vibrational, constructs. And so what ends up happening is we spend all this time thinking, and the higher self is looking at all this thinking, and it's going, silly human. And when you wake up, don't you look at the sleeping self and all of his shenanigans and go, oh, silly, sleeping Mr. Snore, silly concepts, that could even be real. Now this is a big leap, because we are so committed to fixing, that's an X, we're fixing this self. And so here's where we watch our thoughts. I need to, no such thing. There's no needs, there's no shoulds, there's no shouldn'ts. Well, okay, Tony, that's bullshit, because, so you're saying that I can go out here and murder somebody and there's no repercussions. Didn't say that. There's no judgment from spirit, because it's an illusion. But guess what happens when you run the red light in the dream? There's a repercussion, and it looks real, and you suffer, struggle, or deal with it, because whatever energy you're putting out is manifesting. You think you're getting away with something? You ain't getting away with nothing. And people actually think, myself included many times, that, oh, I got to get even with them. Because they did this and I saw it, it's there, or they hurt this person I loved, and I just want to, I want to fix it, I want to get, don't have to do anything. They're automatically set themselves up to get slapped around if they're doing something bad. This life or the next. And check this out, most of the crap you're dealing with, the karma, it's from your past life, not this life. And the energy shifting in our solar system and our planet now, our consciousness is shifting so much. See, consciousness, lines, levels, and degrees, that's a construct that we've created as humans, right? Because we took the knowing of all that is, and we begin to perceive what is through our five senses. So we say our senses or give us a consciousness stream. Yeah, I'm conscious of this board. I'm conscious of this pen. I'm conscious of this room. I'm conscious of you, almost. Well, maybe not. So the point is that the whole idea that God is consciousness may or may not be something that we've made up. In other words, God is all-knowing, all-seeing. If there's no separation from anything that exists, then there's no consciousness of something other than self, right?
Mhm.
So there's only awareness, if you will. And I really think, and it's like, we can't really get our head, I can't get my head around it because I'm not that smart. But the point is that the whole idea that we are the awareness of the movement, thoughts of the mind of God, we're actually the echo that provides the feedback loop to God of creation. And even that's beyond our comprehension. But our higher self, our true self, the knowing self, it knows all that, so we can get in touch with that. Then all those kinds of questions, niggling little questions, could be answered. But the attempt that we make most often, I believe, as humans, is to work on the human. Right? The human needs to be a better person. The human needs to remember these principles so that we can get ourselves to the point where we are whatever we believe the higher self is. But that's like trying to get the sleeping self to grow up enough that it's aware of what you are, the awakened self. And it can't. It has no concept. No concept. It has no mind, no feedback system, no way of being conscious of what you're experiencing. Right?
Mhm.
So, is the sleeping self conscious?
No.
No.
I would say it is, because I was conscious that I was getting pulled over by the police. But it was a construct of illusion. I was only conscious of a construct of illusion that I was projecting, creating out of nothing, right? So is it really conscious? Only of what it imagines reality to be. It's not really conscious of reality, so it has a very limited consciousness. And we could say that our awareness, our consciousness, as a human, is also very boxed in, very limited as a human consciousness. We can't get outside that box, just like the sleeping, snoring self here cannot get outside of its box.
Would you say that's the victim consciousness that you're saying? Are you talking about those
Well,
levels?
we have all these different levels of consciousness, but what actually happens is when we don't really raise the consciousness of the sleeping self, we literally override it.
Okay.
We meld with it, and that sleeping self, suddenly we realize that we are sleeping, and whatever its constructs are begin to fade. But the imagery, the imagination, the imaginary world of dream, the dreamscape that we're in it. We're in its mind, in its imaginary world of dream, and so we can be awake, asleep, if I can put it that way,
Mhm.
for a very short period of time, but we don't want to, we just wake up out of it, right? Pretty quickly, typically. We don't become lucid and stay in a lucid state of dreaming very long. That's just sometimes maybe fraction of a moment. Who knows how fast the mind operates? I mean, it might be only a split second that we're actually lucid in the dreaming self, in the dreaming state. So, thoughts are things.
Mhm.
We could say that God is love and be fairly comfortable with that. We could say that God is creation and I believe be okay with that. But here's the rub. Anytime we start adding more attributes to God, every one of these is limiting. Every one of these is limiting. And the one that's not, these two right here work best for me, because creation is infinite and love is infinite, so it's really hard for me to put a box around it, except on the board. Okay?
Yep.
And so I have gotten to the point where anytime I try to describe God beyond that, I'm just putting human limitations
Got it.
on something that cannot be even spoken of, you know. Because even words are symbols of symbols, and are put, you know, any word, any definition, anything we use is putting a limit on. So we could use those words, God is infinite, you know, God is ever expressing, God is creative, blah, blah, blah. But what we can see is that we don't get it. Can we agree we don't get it, right? That
Yeah.
this sleeping self, really, because both of these selves are really in two different states of dream.
Yes.
And you mentioned it, John, you know, because you talked about a dream, and that this experience is kind of a dream, and it is. But, you know, there's 7 billion plus, soon 8 billion people now that are all, you know, pretty committed to the dream. So it's pretty solid, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
Seems so.
So, getting in touch with a higher self, it's not the thinking self.
Right.
So I'm going to put it's not the thinking self here. It's almost like the Holy Spirit becomes now, if you can imagine your impact when you become lucid and what happens to the sleeping self, as we said, we can see how it kind of melded together. And the higher state of consciousness becomes prevalent in the experience of the dream. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So imagine that taking one more level, and the higher self, the Holy Spirit, melds with us, right? So what's going to happen to this thinking little sliver of intelligent self? It melds with this mind, and this mind then just becomes, it just kind of fades off as anything worthy of our awareness, just like the snoring sleeping self did when we became lucid in the dream. If we can get that, we cannot get the snoring self to interact with the awakened self, really. We can meld with it, and then it becomes we become it as an expression in a dream state. And we recognize that we're in a dream state, but we are expressing ourselves as the awakened self in that state of dream. We can only imagine then that the higher self would be doing the same thing, but just like this has no ability to imagine the constructs of thought of this self, we have no ability to really know what this self is. So the best we can do is to meld with it, and that's why surrender is one of the most important words in our journey of awakening, because we have to let go of thinking that we're supposed to do something to make all this happen.
Well, we're supposed to do something.
Yes. Surrender. We set an intention. If once we learn the truth about ourselves, then guess what? We don't get too caught up on the dream. The drama's happening, but we go, this is just a dream. I don't care if the police are fixing to give me a ticket because I don't have any money. I don't even have a body. Right? It doesn't matter. Right? And so we let go. Right? We begin to surrender our concepts of who and what we are, so that takes us off the hook. Right? Is there a lot going on in the world? No. It seems like it. But all events are neutral. Dreams have no effect, right? And you spoke of forgiveness. And I want to see, yeah, we still got a little bit of time. So you spoke of forgiveness. So this is another one of our most important concepts. And you spoke of, you know, the mess out here in the world, right? And so this is a couple of things I wanted to chat with you about. Is coming back, right? So, do we go somewhere when we go to sleep?
No.
Well, we don't know, right? But let's just say no, not really, because it's a construct of a dream that we create. So we can say we're still safe at home in bed, right? So are we coming back, is the dreaming self, like right now going, I can't wait, I can't wait to go, are we thinking now, I can't wait to go to sleep again tonight because I got things to do?
No. No.
Yes? No.
No.
Right. We don't really, because we see that it's a false construct, right? However, the world, as we know it now, because here's the main difference between these two states of consciousness. This one we are all alone. In other words, pretty much everybody that we're having a relationship with in the sleeping self is us. We're all of it, pretty much. I mean, we're getting some it's like tuning in your radio. You're getting a little sound from the radio, but they're not, the person that's on the radio is not really in the car with you. It's just the voice is there. So you're getting some input and maybe even some guidance. Oh, up ahead there's a trap, there's a cop up there, watch out for the, don't run the red light. You're getting some information, but they're not in the car with you, they're not in the reality with you. You're just getting a little feedback, right? You're getting some assistance. When you turn on the radio, you're getting the news or whatever. I look at that being our state of awareness, if you will. When we're sleeping, we can also get a little guide, because we're much more pliable, right? Much more pliable. That mind is much more pliable, not as concrete, right? So, but for the most part, you're pretty much, if you will, talking to yourself, you're in there, all the constructs are yours, and you're separated. One more level of separation. But this self here in the world, this body, Tony, right now, I'm not in this dream by myself. We're all in this as a collective consciousness. And since we all really are merged together anyway, and we're individuations of love in the mind of God, but we're tied, right, inextricably with each other consciously. So we're all reinforcing the continuation of the dream. I mean, half of the planet at any given time is probably asleep, right? Because we all have to sleep. Well, we could even say a third, since it's about a third of our day, but almost half of our day, but a little more than half of our day, or a third at least, is sleeping. So almost a third of all the people, like right now we said, okay, there's 8 billion or 7 billion people, then we could say, 1/3 of that, whatever that number is a little over 2 billion people are asleep right now. They're right there, right? Nightmares or heaven on earth, one or the other, whatever. They're dreaming, but this self is really, we're keeping the construct going. Almost never ending. So, we would want to possibly, since we're seeing a part of ourselves in all of this, we're all brothers and sisters, we're all part of this experience in this construct, and if we're trapped in this world, also kind of boxed in, there's just more of us in here, and so it feels like we're leaving something behind, or because of the tremendous love and respect that we have and the honor that we have for each other, that we come back to help each other. There's really nobody to help in this one because you're pretty much there by yourself. But in this construct, this dreaming, universe, there is a part of you that's here now. And all of those that you've ever loved that have transitioned, a part of them is still here with you now. Wherever they're in your mind, right? They're still a part of us. And so if there was something going on all along, there was a reason we came into this experience, as you spoke, John, then yeah, there is a game afoot. There is something that we're here to do. And it is that awakening, right? So would we come back if we're not able to completely evolve? And here's an interesting point, and I'll just put this out there, another moment of blasphemy, that all of the ascended masters in the history of our planet are here right now. Because we are in this extremely radical time since 1987, the harmonic conversion, that our time is just sped up dramatically, and we're in this point where there's going to be this, it is happening right now, this huge shift of consciousness is taking place. And so all of the awakened masters, ascended masters, they're here right now assisting us and helping us. holding this higher energy level, making it easier for us to do what they have already accomplished, which is to become realized in form as the higher self. And yes, this small self, as we know it, the I self, could literally kind of take a back seat to the whole deal, but there's no sacrifice or loss because that's a illusory self just like that sleeping, snoring self is, right? So absolutely, I believe we would come back, right? But the mass question is, and the reason I put a question mark there is simply because this is a judgment. Yes?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're the ones that are giving everything all the meaning that it has.
Right.
So we could also say, no mas mess, right? No more mess. We can look at everything as divine. We can look at everything as perfect. Because in reality it is, because in reality, all of this is a foregone conclusion. You can't stay asleep forever. You can't even die. Not really. You can't stay asleep forever. So this life or the next or the next or the next, and that sounds like a long time. That's nothing. You've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. You got this. I mean, death is like, like a bee sting. Well, I didn't like it, but it's really no deal. You can't taste the taste of death, right? A master one time that was mentoring with me just simply said, if you swat a fly or a mosquito, its consciousness level is so low that it doesn't even know it's dead and it just keeps on flying, right? It just leaves the body behind.
So that's good to know.
Yeah.
I won't feel so guilty next time.
Which is kind of what we do. See, we just keep on going, but we suddenly have a shift of consciousness out of a dream of illusion, like when we wake up in the mornings, right?
Okay.
Or this afternoon if you had that nap, that you wanted.
Not this time.
So would we come back? Well, yeah, you'll be right back, right? Because a part of us is our brothers and sisters are all part of us, and if they're in the dark and you are the light, what do you think why do you think you're here now? There's no ambiguity. There is absolutely no question, I don't believe, in the minds of most of us. I think it would be a rare exception indeed that we wouldn't say, well, because you have kind of a review and you say, okay, here's where I made some real progress, and here's where I just took a deep dive and you went south, and I can do better than that, and it's really kind of answering the call. It's rising to a challenge, and it's about feeling the need, and it's all about love, right? Awakening to our true self in love, because we are then becoming the expression of form, the expression of perfection in form and field, here in the physical world. And wouldn't that be cool to have 7 billion awakened masters and a world of peace and joy and bliss and perfect health, and everybody's living to be 900 plus years old, and you're really not aging, so you don't care about it. You're having a wonderful time, and we could call it, here's an idea, heaven on earth, right?
Yeah.
No fear, no guilt, none of that, because we are the expression of Christ consciousness in form. And that's what this is. The higher self, the true self, nothing more than your right mind, really is the Christ. You are the Christ consciousness. Not the Christ Jesus. Jesus awoke to Christ consciousness and became the Christ. And that is what we all will absolutely do. And when enough of us have done it, then it's like, I liken it to like a tree, right? So I'm looking at a big redwood tree or whatever, and somebody's cutting on it, but they don't cut all the way through it. They cut on it enough so that it literally collapses under its own weight. And that would be the construct of the ego literally collapsing under its own weight. And then the mind just, so for many, many, many millions and millions of people, they will be blessed by the work that you're doing right now, because those of us who are already on this pathway, are on the leading edge of that awakening energy. Does that make us special? Yes. No, not really. I mean, we're all the same. But the point is,
that's the call, that's the need that's being filled, and you have risen to the call. And we all want to wake up from a dream of nightmare and illusion and getting arrested for running a red light that doesn't exist, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So, not really a mess. We get to change that definition simply by asking the higher spirit. That's the holy instant. We go there and say, what is the truth? We take that good deep breath. I love to say, are you there? I always get an immediate answer, and then it's like, I love you. Yes, we have a great conversation. We have fun. We love each other. We are one. And then the question, what's the truth? And in the question, the responsibility then is to shut up and listen rather than allow this thinking mind to start fixing, because it really wants to say, I know what being spiritually enlightened is. And as soon as we say that, we are taking a step away from it. Because this self cannot know this self cannot know this self. It's not possible. It has no construct. There's no possibility that the cat will ever drive the car, right? It's just not going to get it, right? We took our cat to my daughter's house for Christmas, and she's been so just amazing in our house and running around and just owning the whole place and just so, like this is like just this regal cat, has no fear, nothing. So we're going to take her with us, and my family, my kids, grandkids, they're going to be so impressed with this cat, because this cat is not afraid of anything, literally. I mean, I thought, man, they're going to be freaked out. This cat's going to have the run of the house, right? As soon as that cat got in that house and smelled those dogs that live there, she went in the closet and didn't come out for 2 days.
Oh, no.
Right?
Oh, no.
It was hell for her. And we felt so bad that we had taken her out of this place of total and absolute freedom and no fear into this illusory concept that she had constructed. And so she's expecting those big ass dogs, because there's one barking in the yard and there's one downstairs and she can smell it everywhere, and she's just doing this. She didn't sleep for 2 days, didn't eat for 2 days. She was tore up, right? And my kids are like, well, that's a real scaredy cat. No, she's not. She was just put into a situation where she believed, right, something that doesn't exist, that we would allow her to be harmed, that she was unsafe. So it was a misperception. And so it was a nightmare for her for a couple of days, right? And I came away thinking, well, with all that confusion and noise and dogs barking and people around, maybe I would be better off to stay home too. Not that I don't love everybody in my family, I love them, but man. Okay. So the holy instant then is our practice to turn within and be connected with our higher self, which is nothing more than our self, our true self. And that's the name of the game, the road that we're on. But again, don't, if you can, refrain, I should say, from believing, allowing this ego mind, which wants to control your spiritual journey. It literally does. It wants to control every moment of your experience. It wants to predict what the next moment is going to be like, so that it can feel safe, right? So we're like that cat. We're looking, where's that dog going to be? Where am I going to get attacked, right? It's always looking. Maybe this angel of God, this higher self, maybe that's just the devil, and he's coming to get me. We've been told all kinds of bullshit, right? But this self has to just eventually, you know what? I don't know how to become enlightened, but I do know how to shut up. And that's the only thing that's required, is a willingness to put our very best thinking off to the side and just admit the truth, humiliate ourselves enough, be humble enough to tell ourselves, at least ourselves, the truth, and maybe the person that's closest with you, and practice this phrase right here. I don't know. But for me as a man, most of my life, I know. I got the answer. I can fix that. I can fix that. I'm Mr. Fix Every Damn Thing. My dad used to tell me when I was like 15 years old, well, who are you? He would get mad at me because I just had more mechanical, it was an aptitude than he had at the time. He's like, he used to call me, well, Mr. Know-It-All. He would get mad at me and call me Mr. Know-It-All. He would be so happy to know that now I'm saying, I don't know, right? I really don't know. This self doesn't know anything, really. All of its constructs are illusory, misperceptions, right? So that's why the pathway that brings us home, the pathway that gets us back, is to
Back pocket.
it's in my pocket. The pathway that gets us back, thank you very much, is forgiveness.
That's where the forgiveness comes.
Because what's really happening is this self is the judge, and we could say the jury, and it's always in judgment. And guess what? It's also judging. It's saying, oh, I know what this Holy Spirit, you have no clue. It's a construct outside of its capacity. But so it's judging the world then, and everything in the box, if you will, everything in the world, saying it's good, it's bad, it's this, it's that. But we know now in our principles, as you said, this is a great principle, right? All events are neutral. And the one that I always marry that with is dreams have no effect. And if we're always dreaming, literally, we're always in some construct of illusion, that's because that's the only thing this mind can do. When this mind is asleep, the only thing it can do is dream. There's really nothing else it can do. I mean, you don't wake up and suddenly there's a new car sitting in the driveway. It did something for you overnight. It manifested some new reality for you. Bullshit, right? It can't do a damn thing. And all of the stuff that it does do in the dreaming state, as soon as you wake up, it's gone. It never existed. This self also really can't do anything. That's pretty damn embarrassing, pretty humiliating, which is a good step, right? So it's judging, trying to control everything. And we have to learn to practice those almighty words. Shut up! You know, tell yourself to shut up a lot, and it's uncomfortable at first, but it's a lot of fun after a while because we notice our mind just going like this. And I love to say, shut up! I'm not listening. What the hell am I thinking? I'm not listening to that shit, right? I don't want to let that, because it's usually me giving somebody a hard time about how they're acting out here in the middle of an illusion that doesn't matter anyway. So what am I doing, right? Shut up. Just go sit down, take a good deep breath, connect with the higher self, and have a nice moment or two of peace, right? Because it doesn't matter. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be loving. It doesn't mean that that's the call and the need isn't there. That's why we came. It's to help our brothers and sisters and ourselves to awaken from an illusory dream of crap. Yeah, because it pretty much is crap. I'm sorry, but if you have any doubt about that, just turn the news on. Okay. So forgiveness is the key. And forgiveness is, another word for forgiveness is allowance, right? So I can allow others to be, because they have free will and they have a right to be here just like I do. Everyone has a right to be here. They chose to be here because they came, episode 4, as a hero, right? The journey of the hero, that's you. That's me. That's everyone that's here. And everyone came with fantastic intentions. They really did. Everyone came with great intentions. So let them be. And just, okay, no more judge. Let's cut the judge out. So forgiveness is moving back before, and this is the way I teach forgiveness, is to move back before, like foreclosure, right? Before I had the mortgage, I had closure, I had a mortgage, I'm going to the closing, and now I got a mortgage. I'm going to be in debt till death, right? That's what a mortgage is. And then I'm moving back before the closing, foreclosure, I'm moving back before. So when we put for in front of whatever, then it's kind of like moving back before that event, right? Giveness, what's my giveness? Judgment. It's judgment, absolutely. See, man, you guys are good. You got this. So you don't need me anymore.
Nope.
So give, what am I giving? Judgment. So I withhold, I've got my choices to forgive, move back before I gave judgment, or what's one step even better? Withholding judgment, right? And that we could say is allowance. So allowance to me is almost like one step before forgiveness, because if I'm allowing everything and I'm not judging everything, where's the need for forgiveness? Right? It really doesn't exist, you see. So that goes back to our discussion earlier about God. See, there's no need for forgiveness in God because God's not judging. All is well, all is perfect. You have free will. You're allowed by God. God did not give you free will and then judge you for it, for giving you free will, to exercise your free will. Here's the gift. Do whatever you want to with it. Because if you give somebody something like Christmas, which was yesterday, and you said, I'm giving you this $100 gift certificate, but you need to spend it, that's not a gift. That's a trade. Right? If you give anything to somebody and you put conditions and limits on it, that's not a gift. So quit telling them that you're this really nice giving person. You're lying to yourself and to this poor person, telling them that you want, oh, you can have this, but you have to display it in your yard for the rest of your life. But I'm not, or I'll come and get it. Well, just go get it right now because you never gave it to begin with, right? But just forgive yourself for that limited perception. Now, giving is no expectation of return. Love is the gift of self and anything and everything with no expectation of return.
Giving and receiving are one.
Giving and receiving are one. Beautifully said. Absolutely. Now, we didn't touch on sin, which is one of my great loves in this study, right? But forgiveness applies to the idea of sin, right? Because sin is a judgment. To say that you've sinned is to judge yourself. To say somebody else sinned is to judge them. And really, all it really means is it is a mistake.
Missing the mark.
Missing the mark.
But we could say it's a mistake of judgment. We could say that it's a mistake of thinking that we're capable of judging, because we're absolutely not capable of anything in that realm. Remember, that self can't. You won't wake up with a new car in the driveway because your sleeping self bought it for you overnight, right? And you're not going to wake up as a saint, right? Because you're smart enough to judge the world. It just doesn't work. God doesn't forgive because I know you need the compassion of God. Well, God doesn't. Are you compassionate about your dream and stuff? Well, maybe you think, boy, whew, that was a terrible dream I had last night. I'm going to love myself for that, right? You can be compassionate, I guess, for yourself for having illusions, but when your child is having a dream or a nightmare and she wakes up, do you feel sorry for her or him?
Yeah.
Maybe a little, because you're thinking, well, they struggled and suffered, but actually it was a dream. Nothing happened. There was no car in the driveway when they woke up. So the point is that I like to look at it in this way. All that God experiences is perfect, and God chooses not to dream. So just like when your child is asleep, you cannot see, they might be having a nightmare, or they might be having a great, heaven on earth dream, but you can't see it because they're dreaming and you're choosing in that moment not to dream. God's not looking at your dream. But your higher self is conscious of everything. So you don't need to, and there's no such thing as private thought. So you don't need to have a beseeching discussion with God or your higher self or anything and say, well, I'm really going through a hard time right now. No, He knows all about it. Probably set it up for you. So you get slapped around a little bit and wake your ass up. I know that sounds harsh. Is that blasphemous? I don't know. So, this is fun stuff. So forgiveness is moving back before we gave judgment. Allowance to me is like the precursor to being trapped into judgment. If I can remember to be allowing and just let everything happen, does it really matter? No.
No.
It just seems like it does in the moment because we're actually giving it some values, right? Especially if we have upset. No, I'm not trying to say that you're not having upsets in your life. Of course you are. Everybody is. Everybody is. But this is a discipline, right? And when we get to the point where we're practicing discipline, we won't be to the point where we're practicing regret. Because inch by inch, what's really important in our lives is the little things we do every day in mind. The thoughts, as you said earlier, you're really watching your thoughts. And that's what this whole practice is about. really. The practice is to be conscious. Last week we talked about the art of thought. To be conscious of our stinking thinking. And catch ourselves when we are, that's a thought of judgment. Now, there's nothing wrong with the thought of discernment. I do need to go left when I leave so that I'm not driving an extra mile to go home. That's not a judgment, that's a discernment. And there's a huge difference between that. A judgment is when you're saying something's good or bad, right? Or you're in denial of a fact or a truth, and you reinvent or rethink or remix, or if you will, rewrite history with your perceived judgments. Difficult to do. So let's see, we got the holy instant, we got forgiveness, we got thinking, we got a dream, we got thoughts of things, we got principles. So God is principle is another wonderful attribute that I love to give to God, because we kind of have an innate sense of the meaning of that word. I'm acting in principle. God is principle, truth is principle, right? And another word that comes to mind in principle is integrity, right? I'm acting out of integrity. What does that mean? That means I'm willing to be self-honest, that I don't know. I can't really fix anything. I can encourage other people to be loving, to take a good deep breath, to ask their higher self, to be connected to that voice of love, because that is the only thing that's really real. But I have no control over anything or anyone. And if I try to exercise that control, then I have imprisoned myself. The person that is the guard at the prison is in jail every bit as much as the other person that has been sentenced to prison. We imprison each other with our constructs and our perceptions and our judgments. Well, I don't know what we're going to talk about tonight, but it's been fun.
It's been great.
Yes.
So I believe this is a really good foundation to build off of for next year, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to put. I'm thinking about putting a survey out. I'm also thinking about starting on January 1st with the workbook lessons.
Okay.
I have a blog talk channel, and you can find me out there. It's called Course Mastery, C-O-U-R-S-E, Mastery, no caps, no spaces, kind of like a password. And you should be able to find me there, and it's called The Best Hour. Now, I quit recording there about 5 years ago, and so some of those videos may or may not be live anymore, right? But you'll find some that are. But anyway, I'm going to start recording again on January 1st in the morning, and it's probably going to be 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, and I'm just going to cover the workbook lessons. And if you want to join in, feel free. And so if you go to truemindshift.com, I will, right now it's just redirecting you to the blog site, but I'll attempt to put together a quick website and give you the choices to join the blog, which is basically a podcast, and we'll just go through the lessons next year. And also to, find our YouTube channel. So it'll be truemindshift.com, and that'll get you there. But you can also go to blogtalkradio.com, and you might be able to find some of my videos or my podcasts. But they went back to 2013, 2014. So you would find those back there. I just don't know if they're live anymore or not, because they changed their policy, and I think they started deleting. Once they delete them, they can't be recovered. So,
Okay.
yeah. And I didn't really download them all. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That'd be
But
cool.
I think it'd be fun to start again for me
Yeah.
personally, because a lot has happened in the last 5 years of my life. Oh my gosh. So really a lot of growth and awakening and fun and all the other stuff that goes with that. So, yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll do that January 1st. It'll be 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern, yada, yada. And truemindshift.com, I should have something posted for you there, so you can go there and find a link that'll take you to the podcast site. And then, of course, a link back to our the Brother T site. And also, I want to say thank you to everyone that's followed along this year. I've seen a few comments. I've seen some people that have found us. I haven't really been putting tags in, so I'm gonna make a dedication for 2020 to put in the right, keywords and the right meta tags so that our website can be found. I know that what we're doing is really difficult, it's radical. It doesn't seem very reverent maybe sometimes, or very spiritual and all that good stuff. Those are just, oh, you shouldn't, no judgment, no judgment. Look, we're just talking about what's possible for anyone who really wants to take a closer look at yourself. And if we take ourselves too serious, we're already stuck over here, fixing our spiritual journey. The Spirit is loving and hilarious. He thinks we're very, very hilarious. Just like we look at our dreaming self, and if the dreaming self's real serious, you look at that and go, this is nothing, right? Because it's not a construct of reality, it's illusion. So don't take yourself too serious. That's my blessing to you going into 2020. I hope that the holiday season wasn't too stressful, and hopefully it was a blessing for you and yours. And then I'm very excited that we'll kick off our first 2020 episode next Thursday night, but I'm going to do that a little different. We'll see how that gels out next week. I love you guys. Thanks so much. I'm going to grab the book. We're going to do a prayer, and we're going to pray out, and we're going to be good to go. So I'm going to just ask us to join together. We're going to take a good deep breath now for a moment of silence as we close out. If you want to follow along, I'm going to do the very last lesson, our final lesson. It's lesson 361 to 365. And it's really 5 lessons in one there. It's on page 429 in the workbook lessons. All right, so let's take a good deep breath. This holy instant would I give to you. Be you in charge, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace. And if I need a word to help me, he will give it to me. If I need a thought, that will he also give. And if I need but stillness and a tranquil open mind, these are the gifts I will receive of him. He is in charge by my requests. And he will hear and answer me because he speaks for God, my Father, and his holy child, his holy son, his holy daughter. That capital H, he, that we're referring to in this prayer, of course, is the Holy Spirit. Nothing more than our right mind. So we turn now to that self, and we say thank you. We turn to that self with deep and profound gratitude that we have never, ever, ever been alone. Every thought of fear, every condition, every moment of exaltation, every experience has been a shared experience with that self that loves us so profoundly and so deeply, it's not even imaginable for that small self that sees itself as separate and alone. We are joined, in fact, and always will be. And now in 2020, we have an opportunity coming up this next year to really allow the meld to begin, for that voice to begin to inform and share and guide us throughout the year, to be more and more and more an expression of what it is, because it is love. And with that, we say good night. We say goodbye to 2019. And I love you. I mean that sincerely. I love you very much. And I know that we have a deep and profound relationship that's already started, and it's real. And we're going to be mighty companions traveling together for a very, very long time. And I'm excited about our journey together. So thank you all very much, and good night.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that.
Yes.